joined by Westborough Board of Selectmen member and candidate for re-election, Shelby Marshall. Thank you for joining me, Shelby.
You're welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you.
So to start off, would you like to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure, happy to do that. So I've been a Westborough resident for over 25 years. I live here with my wife and our daughter, who's a fourth grader. I actually am originally from York Harbor, Maine, went to York High School. I'm a proud Wildcat. And I then went to Brown University, where I got a degree in political science. Spent a couple years after that sort of roaming the country, actually pursuing a career in golf, and decided that wasn't for me, and meandered back to education and then actually back into healthcare, where I spent about 15 or so years in the pharmaceutical space. And so now I find myself here. My wife and I own a local business in town called Right at Home, and we take care of folks as they get older.
It's a very, very interesting background.
I guess my message is to all the young people, it's okay to meander. Sometimes it doesn't feel right, but meandering sometimes gets you to where you need to go.
Why are you running to be on the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, so I'm running for the re-election, quite frankly, because I love the work of being a selectman. It's, if you had asked me, even though I have a degree in poli-sci, if you had asked me 10, 15 years ago, would you be doing this? I would have been like, what? No, I don't think so. But through my work, I'm a Rotarian here in Westborough, and got to know members of our community. That got me involved in being a member of the Library Board of Trustees. So I started to get a sense of how government works locally. I attend town meeting, which to me is, I'm such a geek. It's sort of like attending, like going to Super Bowl, but it's far less expensive. I just like really got the bug. And so I felt like the time was right in my life, given sort of where I was at personally and professionally, to give back to the town. And so I threw my name in the hat to, 3 years ago to run for selectman, and was thankful to get the votes. And I'm happy, and obviously happy that I did, and excited to begin another 3-year term, hopefully after March 2nd.
What do you think are the responsibilities of a Board of Selectmen member?
Sure. So that's a great question. And sometimes I think, people think we're sort of like all powerful, like Oz, and, we're not. We're, first of all, I think the important thing to know for your viewers to understand is that I'm one member of a 5-member board. So what's interesting about this is that, unlike a mayor that's sort of like all powerful and is running a city kind of infrastructure, as a board member, if I want to be successful, I've got to get my other board members on board with an idea. And certainly I need a majority to do that. Ultimately, I want a super, absolute majority. And I need to do my homework to get there. So it's a really interesting dynamic that if you're not familiar with it, particularly if you're coming from like the private sector, where how private businesses do things, it feels awkward. I guess that's the best way to do it, because there's a lot of consensus building that you've got to do. So in terms of specific responsibilities, I've just got some notes that I'm going to kind of refer to here to make sure I cover them. So in general, we're the supervisors of all kind of matters in the town that are not specifically delegated by law or to or by another board. So for example, a really simple example is Mass General Law sets up the construct of school committees. School committees have very specific roles and responsibilities that the Board of Selectmen do not, as well as their responsibilities delegated to the planning board, for example, that we do not. So we sort of fill in around that. And so an example of something that's coming up that is not addressed elsewhere is the chicken and poultry bylaw. It's kind of one of those things that only in Westborough, right, would you be having a conversation with chicken and poultry, but that's becomes the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen. So we do things like preparing the town meeting warrant. We make appointments to boards and committees, as well as appointing our town manager and choosing our fire chief and police chief, etc. We grant licenses and permits, and we set policy and really do a lot of, one of the things that I love is the strategic and long-term planning for the town.
What experiences and/or skills do you have that would make you a great Board of Selectmen member?
So it's always hard to kind of talk about yourself in this way, but I know it's a requirement. So, so I think one is I have an incredible work ethic, and I'm not afraid to dig in. In fact, I love to dig in and do the work. I also think that being a member of the Board of Selectmen, you know, really calls on your leadership skills, and there are a lot of different ways to lead. But I think but leadership is often defined as being visible and being out there and leading people and connecting people. And I think I'm very good at doing that. I think I'm really good at building relationships with people that are productive. And I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations, even if we don't see eye to eye. It's, you know, I want to sort of find what are the common points so we can, you know, move an initiative forward. And sometimes, you know, I may not personally agree with this, like a pathway, but I've got to look at it for the good of the entire town. And that's hard to do. It's hard to kind of put your, you know, backdoor your personal feelings, but really listen to what the community is saying in that feedback. But you also have to be out there to build those relationships.
What distinguishes you from the other candidates?
Yeah, so I think what I would speak to is the work that I've done so far, and kind of let that speak to my work over the past 3 years. I think that I am, you know, kind of as my campaign signs say, I'm visible, I'm thorough, I'm authentic. I have, you know, been, whenever there's an opportunity, without being sort of like I play basketball, so I want to be a ball hog, right? You want to let other members take the lead and where they choose to, but wherever there's been an opportunity to jump in, I have done so. So I helped choose the town's strategic plan consultant. I helped save the Spur House, which is now a historical property that a family is now living in. I was a participant on the town manager search committee. I helped with mitigating and bringing in $9 million to the town as a result of the Pulte development. I developed a community statement on racism. I did that in partnership, but I led that effort. And so I could kind of go on and on and on, but my point here is that if there's work to be done, I think my efforts show that I'm willing to do that.
If reelected, what are some issues that you would like to solve or improve?
So there's never seemingly any end to issues, and certainly COVID has you know, it sent all of us reeling in so many different ways, ways that certainly I can't sort of even, probably some that I don't know about, and certainly that we wouldn't have time to kind of cover here. But I think the priorities for Westborough are economic and social recovery. So how do we come back together kind of as a town, like since we've, as you know, normally you and I would probably be sitting somewhere in person doing this, but like, how do we rebuild those relationships beyond a screen? How do we build back our economy? There's a lot of interest in revitalizing our downtown, and I'm very interested in that work, but I also want to support other economic pockets, if you will, across the town. And I think the way we do that is by taking our master plan and the strategic plan we already have. So the master plan's in process, the strategic plan and our staffing study, and then work of other committees and boards. And we really have to, we, the Board of Selectmen, have to set a long-term strategic plan for next steps. And I kind of like to call that intentional planning. And I'm very excited about the opportunity to do that. We have recently acquired from the state the Hakamaka Pond area, which is over off of Fisher Street and Smith Valley Parkway. So how are we going to use that? I sit on that land reuse committee. I think it's has great potential benefit for recreation. So that's pretty exciting. We all want to figure out what's going on with the Regal Cinema property. So how do we bring that back and have that generate commercial tax property? But maybe there's some other use for it. So let's kind of figure that out. And certainly we have only begun to scratch the surface, I think, as a community and certainly as town government as it relates to diversity and inclusion. So we've got a lot of work to do in that area, and we need to be thoughtful, you know, about that work and you know, get input along the way. Finally, I guess I would say is communication. I've heard many times that the town website needs to be improved. The town could do a better job communicating. So community outreach, engagement, and communication is also something I'm very interested in.
I know you already spoke about this a little bit, but if you want to like elaborate more. So during your time in office, what have been some initiatives or policies that you are particularly proud of?
Yeah, good question. So, so I would say that I'm particularly proud of the work that we've done to renegotiate our contracts with our fire and police chiefs. You know, I think we have two amazing guys there in those positions, and they've built strong departments that have been more than tested in these COVID times. So I'm very proud of that work. I would also say that I've done my work on the community, the COVID-19 task force, while not a policy, has been a fair amount of time. I've worked behind the scenes to set up the community COVID-19 fund. And in fact, we're ready to kick off another effort of that. So it's sort of like all work behind the scenes that I've been working on. And I'm very excited about the work that we've done as a board with VIA. You know, one of the things that's challenging about, you know, as I'm rattling away here is that I think it's really hard as a member of the board to kind of say, I did this. And I'm just not an I person. To me, it's a we did this, and how do we support each other doing this? So I'm very proud of the work that the board has done over the past 3 years, and any role I had in leading that, then, you know, that's great. And I'm proud to have, you know, taken on that role.
You talked about the task force a little bit, the COVID task force. How was your experience handling that this year in Westborough?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges, you know, Westborough has certainly changed, you know, the 25 years I've been here, and certainly people have, you know, kind of towny roots much deeper than mine, if you will. And we're a really diverse community. And so one of the things that has been eye-opening to me is how little we know as, you know, so I'm, you know, a community member, how little I know about neighbors that are not in my direct kind of sphere. And obviously this physical separation has not made it easy. So it's not like I can go over to, let's say, a clustered community and say, hey, I'd like to talk with you. What's going on? Are you struggling? I mean, just the physical separation has been very difficult. And I know so many people, you know, are feeling isolated across, you know, age, race, you know, various socioeconomic demographics, and that not being able to connect, feel like we're deeply connected to those individuals. I think we've done a good job, but it's certainly opened up my eyes to work that we have to do to ensure that folks have access to, you know, communication through, you know, so I do everything on my phone and this, that, everything. That's great that I'm able to do that. But like my mother-in-law lives downstairs from me, and, you know, she doesn't go onto the website, you know, to get her information. So she's felt really isolated, but the senior center has done an incredible job of outreaching to her. But how many other people could really benefit from that senior center outreach, but they don't know how to make that connection. So that's been very eye-opening. But I'm very proud of the work that the task force has done in collaboration with lots of other groups. The food pantry has been amazing. People have said, you know, how do I get food to people? We've done food drives. I mean, as a community, we are very connected, and I'm so proud of that. You know, it goes well beyond, you know, government offices and boards and all of that.
What is something that the board is currently working on, like the master plan, for instance, that excites you?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, well, gosh, there are so many things. I mean, I really want to see the disposition of the former Regal Cinema property come through. That's currently in land court, and that process is churning its way through. It's taking far too long for all of us, but I'm seeing that come to the town, hopefully, and then ultimately finding a developer for that property, I think offers some interesting opportunities. Very excited to hear from sustainable, well, it's not just Sustainable Westborough, but the Climate Action Plan Task Force. They will be presenting the Climate Action Plan to the Board of Selectmen. So I'm very interesting to hear that, because that's a whole new sort of way of thinking, in a way we need to be able to pivot and address our contributions to, climate. And within that, there's just so many different layers of work that have to be done. So it's very exciting, but it's, as you can probably see from my expression, it's a lot of work ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. What is a potential new idea that you would like to introduce to the town if you were reelected?
Oh, a new idea. And I think, I'll go back to my comment before on like intentional planning. I'd love to think, again, this is a little bit of like, what's the role of the board versus planning board versus other groups, but how do we better maximize existing tracts of land? So for example, on the east side of town, it's kind of office park, right? So I don't go there a lot because I don't work there. But what if that could be, what if it was a work, live, play? So what if there was a reason to go there, and there's already open space, but what if there was a reason to go and have dinner there, and people had, places to live? I certainly think, and I don't want to be, I didn't speak to this. We've done an incredible job as a board, and Selectman Edinburgh really led this charge on establishing the Affordable Housing Trust. Affordability to live here for seniors, for kind of what we call as workforce, so folks that might be kind of more in the service industry, as well as folks that work here in the town, making Westborough affordable for everyone, or more people, I should say. It's not going to be affordable for everyone, is critically important to the success and sustainability of us as a town. And there's a ton of work to be done there, but they've got a great group underway, and I'm happy to support that work going forward.
How can high school students be more active in local politics?
Ooh, I love this question. So, when you get to be old like myself, you say like, wow, what would I have done differently? How, I think, so we've got a couple great examples. There's a gentleman and a young man in the high school who attended the first master plan public forum, and he engaged in the process, and then he was added as a youth member to the advisory committee, which I think was a brilliant decision by the Master Plan Advisory Committee. I'd love to see us do that more often on various boards and committees. So we do that for the Youth Commission. I believe we do that for the Cultural Council, but I'm not 100% sure. But where are there other opportunities? First of all, we got to kind of create the opportunity for you guys to participate. The other thing is, so I'd love to kind of explore that and see where that would make sense. But even if there weren't seats to create a channel for students to provide their input, because we want people like you, Jack, to come back here after you've gone off and, gone and done whatever you want to do and finding your way. And then you want to come back because you had such a great experience living here in Westborough. But we want to kind of create that connection to the community. So the other thing I would say is that I'd love to see where it makes sense for us to create sort of internship or volunteer opportunities. I know you guys have a pretty high bar to fulfill in terms of community service hours. And you guys are super talented. So let's leverage those talents and, work on a project with a committee or what have you, but we've got to tighten those connections. And then I would just encourage you guys, like, find what's interesting to you. If you're interested in public safety or open space, watch a meeting, read the minutes. I know that that's probably not, overly exciting, but that is sort of how you get to sort of get a sense of like how the meetings are run. What's the format? How do people speak? How do they share their ideas? How do they not share their ideas? Why are people, a few people talking and other people aren't participating? It really gives you a sense of the meeting. So, and opportunities like this. I mean, I'm so happy that you reached out. I was really surprised and honored, frankly. So I think it's great that you guys are, through your work on the newspaper, are making that effort.
And last question, what message do you want to send to Westborough High School students?
So I think, boy, this message is different than it would have been, 2 years ago, right? So you guys are strong, you're resilient, you're kind, you're hardworking. Sorry, I'll get a little choked up here. You're forward thinking. You will be better because of this crazy pandemic we're living in. We will get through this. I think give yourself time and patience to get through these times, and be your best self always. Sorry.
Thank you. That is good advice. So thank you for your time and good luck in the election.
Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciate it.